Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and my Mavic Mini and I want to wish you a very happy Easter. But before I begin, I probably need to explain some things some things I said in my last video. I had a TIA, which has nothing to do with my heart. It has everything to do with my brain. And when I went into the hospital after when they took me in, they were asking me questions like, what's your address and what's your phone number and things like that. And it was like I was taking a test in math class in high school. I thought, I never learned this stuff. I mean, I just could not come up with an answer. But after a few hours in the hospital, things started clearing up a little bit. And I don't know if they're already cleared up. I don't know if I can still remember everything like I used to. So if I get stumbled up here, you'll know it's because I'm brain dead. Anyway, so with that said, I want to wish you a happy Easter. And I want to tell you about how much this little guy and Mr. Kent are a lot alike. There's only one difference between the two of us is I have a soul and little Mavic Mini doesn't have a soul. So let me get started. First of all, if I take this outside and I turn it on, these antennas will radiate a radio signal. And that radio signal will go out and go on and on and on and on, unless it's absorbed by a neighborhood or something like that. But if it's going up in the sky, it goes on and on and on. And if it weren't for our ionosphere, it would just keep on going and going and going. Because of the frequency it is, the only thing is, like I put up in a previous video, which I'll put a link to, it just gets weaker as it goes, but it still keeps going. Give me an example. NASA space agency sent a spacecraft up to Mars, and the radio signals were going all the way up there, and they told it to land and told it to take pictures and so on. So radio signals just go on and on and on. Now, like me, okay, so keep that in mind, okay? Just there's no limit to it, all right? We'll get back to that. Like me, this body of this thing, because that's the next thing, we have body, soul, and spirit, okay? So, and spirit is like the radio signal, goes on and on and on. All right. Now, so the body of this thing, it's contained within a body, and this body is limited. And as I bend this back and forth, if I do try to do it with this one, it doesn't work that way. It works like this, So that body has limitations, and so does my body. And so my body, if I try to bend my arm back the wrong way, well, it'll break off. Okay. So I'm a living person, but the thing is, the person is made up of soul and body and spirit. Okay, so here's my body. This is not Mr. Kent. This body is what Mr. Kent lives in, and Mr. Kent is the soul that lives in this body. And so, pardon me. So my soul is contained within my body. And like when I moved to Arizona 3.5 years ago, my body was up there, and in order for me to get down here, and my soul wanted to come down here, so I told my body, take me down there. So we jumped in the car and came down here. So here I am, I'm down in Arizona, inside of this body. But this body is getting old, and it's not me, it's just carrying me around. And like while I'm talking right now, that's my soul using my body to convey information to this camera I'm looking at. So anyway, okay, so now my spirit is like the radio, or like the radio signal that comes off of the drone, okay? The radio signal radiates out and goes and goes and goes, and so does a spirit. My spirit radiates out from my body and just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And and so does God's spirit. His spirit radiates out from wherever he is in heaven, and I think they think it's up north somewhere. I mean, in the universe. But anyway, his soul radiates out. His spirit radiates out, just like mine does, And so it comes all the way down to earth. And so there's no limit to the spirit. Okay? Now then, let's pretend we'll turn this on. Okay, so now this is, there we go. Okay, so now this is, pretend like this is me, okay? And I just do whatever I want, and take a look here as I move the drone. I'm moving the drone, I'm making the gimbal move back and forth, okay? That's me using the soul inside here, which is no soul, but anyway, I'm in control, or the drone is in control of the gimbal, all right? One day, back in 1951, at a Billy Graham rally, my body was there, my soul was there, and my spirit was there, and God's, through Billy Graham, God's spirit spoke to my spirit, okay? And at that, and because it radiates down, mine radiates up. He knows everything about me, you know. And so his spirit radiated down my spirit, and that's when I put my trust in Jesus. And when I did that, well, then our two spirits were like connected, and I was changed. But anyway, when that happened, now we'll pretend this is God, okay? Pretend it's God. All right. Now what happens now is I still have control over my gimbal, but see if I can do this and put it up there. But God he tries to influence my control too. So we'll get that up there where you can see it. And like now, I'm not doing that. My controller is doing that. All right. Now, God is like a controller. He gives me freedom to do this, but then he likes to be able to guide and direct and help me do the best thing I can. So this is the spirit. Here's the spirit coming out of here and coming into here. And my spirit's coming out of here and coming into here. And that's kind of a mechanical way of saying, that's how it works. So when I want to do something and I pray and I ask God for help or guidance, okay, he hears that. And if I listen close and if I just watch how things go around me, I get answers to my prayers, and sometimes I don't get answers. If I'm paying attention though, he answers a lot of my prayers. So this is not really God, but it's kind of a picture of how God, if I want to let him have control, I can get him out of my life, and then I'm the only one in control, but I want him in my life because he's smarter than I am. Everybody's smarter than I am. But anyway, so I'm going to turn this off because I think we're through with it. Okay, now, my soul will never die. My body will. And give you an example, last night when I went to bed and my body was tired and it was really tired, so it went to sleep. But my soul didn't go to sleep. My soul lives on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And when my body dies, my soul will still live on and on and on and on. And depending upon how I accept God and Jesus as my Savior depends on what will happen after this body dies, okay? There's a story that Jesus told about a rich man and a guy named Lazarus. And Jesus said there was a certain man. When he says there's a certain man, he's talking about there was really a man. And of course, then he named Lazarus. And that man was very wealthy on earth and everything in this life, but he never believed in God. And so when he died, well, he didn't go to heaven. But when Lazarus died, because he loved the Lord, well, he went to heaven. Now, I'm looking at my notes because I got to make sure I remember everything here. Okay. I got to tell you about my mother-in-law. And we called her Grandma. So if I call her Grandma, it's not my grandma, it's my mother-in-law. But when she got old, she was in a rest home. And I would, she lived about 100 miles away. And so when we would go see her, I had a little accordion. And I would walk through the halls when I got down there and start playing the accordion. And in a rest home, there's not a whole lot to do. So a lot of the people would come out with their wheelchairs and their crutches and their canes and their oxygen bottles and all that. And they start following me around as I walked through the halls. Then these people would gather behind me. And sometimes I'd go into the cafeteria. And so then when I come back to Grandma's room, all these people would be following me. And she thought it was so cool to have all these people in her room, because then I'd go in her room and I would play and I'd play and I'd play. And so she thought that, and I did that several times, and she thought it was pretty fun. So anyway, when she got to be where she was going to die, and she'd been laying still on the bed for a long, maybe a week or so, and just, kind of lifeless. And so I went down and just to be there when she passed away. And so when I walked in the room, I walked over to the bed and I reached down to hug her, and she raised up and she said, "Bring your," and then she went back down on the bed. That's all the energy she had. She couldn't get, she couldn't raise up and she couldn't talk. But I know she was asking me if I brought my accordion, because I always did. So anyway, another story. But anyway, so I was there. I think I stayed up there overnight, and then the next day, the family was gathered in the room there, because we knew she wasn't going to last long. And I just happened to be sitting, here's the bed, and I was sitting about 5-7 feet away, and everybody was visiting like you do, and I was just sitting there, and I saw it right in front of my eyes. All of a sudden, she'd been laying there and hadn't said anything for, I don't know, a day or two. And all of a sudden, she, I gotta move all this stuff out of the way. All of a sudden, she goes like this with a big smile and big eyes, and raises up out of bed like this. And then, without closing her eyes or anything, she fell back down. Now, you can believe what you want, but I saw it with my own eyes. She saw something as she was passing away. I don't know if it was her reaching up or if the angels were reaching down, because that's how they took Lazarus to heaven. The angels carried him up there. Anyway, long story short, it convinced me that there's life after death of some kind, and she was happy to see it. So I think she probably was being helped by the angels or something. Okay, so I want to tell you that, and that influenced me a lot, seeing that. But then also, I have this little story I tell people, and it's called The Spot on the Wall. When we moved into this house, my wife wanted to paint the whole inside of the house, because it had been a rental and everything. So she painted this room, and on the other side of the room, which you can't see, there's a nice big wall that's painted 3 years ago. It's nice and fresh and everything, but somebody had hammered a nail in the wall to hang a picture. And then they pulled that nail out, or somebody pulled it out, and now there's a little spot there where the nail was there. And every time I look at that wall, my eye gravitates to that nail hole, the spot on the wall. And that just kind of reminds me of how most of us, or all of us, however you want to look at it, me included, if you take eternity, now there's eternity behind us and there's eternity before us. And like when I was a kid, all the telephones were hooked up to a wire on the wall. But things change as time goes by. And there was no such thing as a cell phone or internet or anything like that. In fact, I wasn't even TV back then. But bottom line is, time goes on and on and on and on, and one of these days I'm gonna die. But eternity, and a lot of people will be alive and everything keep going, and so there's just gonna be, it doesn't stop because I die. And so when I look at that spot on the wall, it reminds me that if the wall was eternity, and that spot was my little time in eternity, and that's not even a good comparison, because the wall has limits and eternity doesn't. But that little spot, let's say that's my life. I'm 78 years old, so that little spot represents 78 years of eternity, okay? And when I look at the wall, my eye gravitates to that spot. And just like in my own life and yours and everybody's, when we look at ourselves, we think of right now, this lifetime. We don't give a whole lot of thought to eternity. Like, what are you going to be doing? Where are you going to be 100 years from now? Where are you going to be 500 years from now? The rich man that went to hell, he's still burning right now while I'm talking. Okay? And I don't want that for anybody, especially if you're watching right now. So that's why I put up this video, because I want you to be concerned about what's going to happen when your old body gives out and you go on into eternity. When I was 9 years old, my grandma took me to see Billy Graham. God's Holy Spirit, my spirit blended, and I asked him to save me, and he did. Now, I'm going to give you one verse, and it's a special verse to me, because it tells you basically how you can be saved and go to heaven. And it's Romans 10, 9 and 10. It says, if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and believe in thine heart that God has raised him from the dead, and that's what this Easter weekend is all about. If you believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, which makes you right with God, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. Now, what that says is, first of all, you have to understand that if you want to go to heaven, you go through that process. But to believe that God raised him from the dead, you also want to remember that you're not going to want to live a life that doesn't please God. You want to live a life that pleases God. So as you use your mouth and you ask God to save you, you might want to make sure that you're telling him that your intention is to live a life that pleases him. A lot of times you just have to say, help me, because that's what he does. Help me to live a life that pleases you and save my soul from going to hell. That's it. You don't have to, you don't confess to anybody. You just confess to him that you're a sinner that needs help. And he will save you just like he did me. So I hope that's helpful. Me and my Mavic Mini, we have a lot of fun together, but I think most of the fun is because God has blessed me inside. Now, in the descriptions, I'm going to put some links, and you can make comment to me if you want, if you have questions, but the best place to get your questions answered is where I go to church, and that's it's Redeemer Bible Church here in near Phoenix. It's south of Phoenix, and our pastor's name is John, and it's a loving church. So you go to www.redeemeraz.org, and I'll put a link to that. And if you have some questions, he would be a smarter guy than me. Who wouldn't be? Anyway, he would be a smarter guy than me to answer your questions. And you might even want to watch some of the videos that they put up, because they're very good. So, thank you. I appreciate your watching my video. And I know this is a little bit about drones and a lot about spiritual things, but that's what we need to remember, especially at Easter time. So happy Easter from me and my Mavic, and God bless.